Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Barovsky, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new TEAM therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
For the last time.
Hello, David. We have two special guests, Jill Levitt and Matt Mayer, with us. Hello to them. Hello to all of our listeners around the country, around the world, throughout the galaxy. This is the Feeling Good podcast. It's our 500th episode.
And this is our episode with our fantastic host, Rhonda Barovsky. I can think back on our very first episode together, and it's with profound sadness that we come to a closure of your fantastic reign as queen of the Feeling Good podcast, Rhonda. You've been just beautiful and awesome, and I can't thank you enough. You've been brilliant. You've been funny. You've been warm. You've been vulnerable. You've been open. You've used yourself as a teaching tool, and you brought a lot of credibility and realism to the podcast.
Thank you, David. It has been the greatest honor of my life to do this podcast with you. Meeting you has been one of the greatest joys of my life. It's changed me personally. It's made me a way better therapist. My husband and children thank you because it's made me a better partner and parent. And I know I don't think words can exist for me to express my gratitude and my appreciation for you. I've been on the receiving end of doing personal work with you that has changed my life. I have a story to tell in the Tuesday group too, because I was on the receiving end of personal work with the two of you, Jill and David, that also changed my life. And with you, Matt and David. So I appreciate all three of you so tremendously and feel like I am like the luckiest person on earth to know you. I have two endorsements to read, but I want to say one funny thing is that a musician that I admire, Bob Weir, died this summer. And he said that he's hoping that the Grateful Dead's music lasts for 300 years. And people will know that the music is successful in 300 years. And that's what I think about this podcast. I think this podcast, people will be listening to it for the next 300 years or more because it's been so meaningful and it's touched so many people's lives. And all of that is based on your work, David, and everything that you have done.
Thanks, Ian. That's been one of my motives in doing these podcasts and doing the work with you, Jill, and with you, Matt, is to have some statement for the future. We didn't necessarily make it big in this lifetime, but we might still have hopes for some of these ideas catching on to a greater extent. I think they deserve much greater endorsement than they've had to date. Although you've been so instrumental, Rhonda and Jill and Matt, and helping to spread the word of what we've created.
Well, I'm going to just read these two endorsements, and then I'd love to hear more from you, Jill and Matt, and then give you some statistics about the podcast. So it's a little embarrassing to read this one, but I'll read it. Someone wrote in to me with a bunch of ideas for the podcast, and I replied to her that I was not going to be the host anymore, and I forwarded the emails on to Kevin, who is taking over the role of podcast host, Kevin Cornelius. And so she wrote me, "Dear Rhonda, I'm so sorry the podcast will be losing you. It breaks my heart a little bit to hear this. I wish you all the best. You've been a remarkable host, very giving of yourself and time, and I especially enjoyed the segment where you worked through your daily mood log. It left me in tears. It was powerful and moving and so relatable. Please know that you've touched the hearts of many people. From one of the many listeners that you never knew existed, but have received so much from you and David and Matt May and Jill Levitt and all the others. May the universe bestow upon you great things. Always, Kristen.
And who was that from?
That was from a listener named Kristen.
Okay. A female, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you, Kristen, for those kind words. And you certainly deserve every bit of adulation that Kristen expressed.
Thanks. And so now someone wrote to you, David, someone named Phoebe, and she wrote, Dear Dr. Burns, I've been using the lessons part of the Feeling Great app, and I was right. Dr. Burns, your voice really helps me. I love Rhonda's voice too. Her voice helps me, but I'm really focused on yours, Dr. Burns. I also feel like I understand better.
Deeper and deeper.
I also feel like I understand better than when I read some of the ideas by using the app. I still struggle somewhat with depression, but you, Dr. Burns, and the app are my go-to for help every time, and I keep learning new things from you. Love and hugs, Phoebe.
Well, thank you so much, and love and hugs right back at you. And thank you for selecting those two beautiful endorsements. Well, you're the captain of the ship today, Rhonda, so guide us.
Well, I thought I would mention a few statistics about what we've done on the podcast since I've been the host, and that we have had 118 Ask David episodes. Matt, you've been on about half of those. We've had 75 different guests, some repeaters. Tyann Trong has been on 8 times. Taylor Chesney has been on 6 times. We've actually have more than 500 episodes because during the COVID shutdown, we did 8 episodes that we called Corona Cast episodes that were extra. And Taylor Chesney was on 2 of those telling her love story with her husband, which were very sweet. We've had a lot of people talk about love on this podcast. Jacob Towery talked about flirting, which you've also talked about, Matt. Jacob taught us about enthusiastic verbal consent. We had some people in their 20s with Jacob, 2 women, Sydney and Sophie, talk about dating. Kyle Jones has talked about dating within the lesbian gay community. We've talked about transgender issues twice. We've talked about racial bias and the importance of teaching TEAM, reaching out to people of color. We've talked about placebos and antidepressants, no practice with Lee Flowers. We've talked about psychedelic therapy, love, conflict, postpartum depression, self-defeating beliefs, parent-child issues. We've had people from Mexico City, the UK, India, MIT, Harvard, Oxford. There have been 20 times when we've posted personal work. Most of those were with you and David, Jill. A couple of them were with me. A couple of them were with you too, Matt. One was with Sterling Morley. Kyle Jones did a really great episode on how to do a job interview using TEAM methods to stay calm and focused. And we've had 4 episodes on the music of TEAM with Brandon Vance and Heather Clegg and other people. So we've had a lot of really poignant learning, and we've had a lot of fun. Okay, that's all I have to say right now.
I'll say a quick thing just by way of saying hi to everybody and thank you to everybody as well, which is, I don't know if everybody knows this, but not all, so well, actually, okay. So I'll say a quick thing to start out with. So when I moved to California from New York City, like about 19 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I moved here, I was 7 months pregnant with my second son. My first one was like 2.5 years old. And I had to give up my whole practice in New York, which was already starting to take off. I gave up my practice in New York City. I moved to California knowing no one, actually, because my husband and I wanted to raise our kids near my brother and his wife. And so we moved here for family. And when I had right before having my son, I was like 9 months pregnant. I took the California licensing exam so I could at least start up a private practice here. And after having him, I thought, I'm going to start a practice and I really want to have someone to consult with about my difficult cases. And I had already gotten a lot of CBT training. And I think for whatever reason, I was looking at my desk and I had Feeling Good sitting there. And I thought, and I somehow figured out that David was affiliated with Stanford. And I was like, I'll email David Burns and be like, hey, I'm starting up a private practice. I have a lot of CBT training. And I wondered if you would be willing to consult with me on some cases. And as luck would have it, David wrote me back right away and said, I don't consult with people individually, but I'm running this group on Tuesday evenings out of my living room in Los Altos Hills, which was 10 minutes from where I lived at the time, and you'd be welcome to join. And so that's kind of how I connected with David initially. And I went that Tuesday night, I walked up that long driveway and I went into David's living room and I met Matt and I met Jacob and I met a bunch of other people and Angela was there, Maura was there, I think, in David's living room. And that was my first exposure to Team CBT. And I was literally hooked. I have been with David essentially every Tuesday night with a few exceptions since then. And I wanted to say that I also met Matt, and right away when I started learning Team CBT from David, I was like, this is amazing. I want to get really good at this and I want to get good at it really fast. And Matt seemed like, David number two, like just the smartest guy I ever met other than David. And so I started meeting with Matt, paying Matt to consult with me on my cases like every other week from the outset. So I will just say thank you so much to David, for everything. I don't even know where to start, as Rhonda said. I feel like every therapy session that I have and every personal interaction that I have, I owe its success to David. And that's not an overstatement. And I also really and truly always credit you, Matt, for becoming the therapist that I've become, because I feel like those few meetings that we had, however long it lasted, probably 6 months or something, were so incredibly helpful to me and kind of got me over that hump. It's really hard to learn Team CBT. And so having that individual one-on-one training with you was, super influential. So thank you to both of you. And then I will also say to Rhonda, who has always been so unbelievably supportive. I feel like, Rhonda, I've always connected with you on a personal level and just love you and appreciate your sense of humor and your intellect, and also just your ability to be real and direct and open and communicate. So I feel like we're often partners in crime in trying to support David and all of his various endeavors. And I appreciate that about you.
Thank you. I love you too, Jill, and I felt immediate connection when I first walked into the Tuesday group and just saw your shining light. And I can say the same thing about you, that I've learned so much and become a much better therapist because of my relationship with you and learning with you. Yeah. I'm sure I'm going to start crying before this time is over.
We're crying away.
Yeah, I'm getting a little choked up as I reflect on how much time we spent together, and I don't have more favorite people than the folks I'm talking to right now in my life. And Jill, it was such a pleasure working with you. I felt like it wasn't work at all. It was just fun when we got to hang out and talk about cases and practice methods. And you already arrived with so much knowledge and wisdom. And I learned a tremendous amount from you, Jill. And David, you have this gravitational pull. You pull brilliant people to you from all over the world. And your energy and your way of being with people, where you're warm and empathic and hilarious,
which is part of the time.
What's that?
I say, which is part of the time when I'm warm.
Part of the time.
but I'm not cranky.
Right. But I just feel so grateful for this whole community that you've created with Jill and Rhonda. And it's been, I remember the first time I met you, David. I was working at Stanford Hospital and didn't really know what I was doing. I was a medical student, and you were volunteering your time, and you just came down to the ward where you knew the action was. I think it was the open ward where a lot of people were struggling, and the residents were trying to help them, but we didn't know how to do empathy. We didn't really know how to listen to our patients. And you showed up with the 5 secrets of effective communication, and you did a little practice exercise, and we all went around and tried to respond to these statements from patients. And my response was so bad that you couldn't resist laughing. I don't know if you remember that. But it was just a joyful, fun time. Like, you made it safe to mess up and not to be perfect. In fact, you always told us the second best thing you could do would be a perfect job. And the first best thing is you could fail and screw up, and we could learn from that. So thank you for making that environment a reality and pulling such great people like Rhonda and Jill into your loving presence.
I love what you're all saying, and I really resonate with the fun aspect. I think that's what's kind of kept me going, is the fun things. We work with you, doing co-therapy, just knowing we're going to work another miracle in a single 2-hour session. And when I was a psychiatric resident, I just dreamed and wondered, was that type of thing even theoretically possible, much less be able to help create it and experience it. And Matt, thinking back on when you were a resident, I can remember, eating Japanese food, and you were talking about some fellow's son who you were treating. And I don't think you had an agenda with the boy. The fellow was trying to, get you to be the agent to implement what he wanted, type of thing. And I can remember those conversations and, how much fun they were, and seeing this light, get turned on inside your head and suddenly begin to see you blossom into, one of the world's greatest therapists. And but laughing along the way and feeling a strong emotion, strong sadness. It's just been a fun thing. And then Rhonda, it's been such an adventure with you since podcast roughly 1:30 or whenever it was that you took over. And I'm just wondering, thinking back, what were some of your strongest memories from this long stretch?
I remember doing the podcast with Heather Clegg. It's episode 293 on the 5 secrets with difficult patients. She's a psychiatrist who works at Highland Hospital, and she came on with some of the most difficult things that patients said. And I've recommended that episode to many people. I really love that episode. Of course, I, selfishly speaking, have done personal work, I think 3 times on this podcast. And when I first started the podcast, I didn't feel like I was worthy and I wasn't good enough and I didn't deserve to be on here. And you offered to do personal work. And it was very easy to forget that other people might be listening because you're so charismatic. And when you give someone attention, you pull them in and give them your undivided attention. That's true for you too, Matt and Jill. And I loved doing the personal work with you. When I had cancer last summer, which I can say that now I'm cancer free and fully healed.
Woohoo!
Yeah. The work that we did together was definitely part of my emotional healing. And that was really, really important and helpful. I loved the episodes that we did with Sean Williams and Amber Warner on the importance of reaching out to people of color as therapists, because I think that was so important. And I think that follows through the philosophy that the Feeling Good Institute about the importance of teaching about diversity. And I've loved everything that Taylor Chesney has taught us about working with children and teens. And we had an Israeli therapist whose name was Or, and he talked about even working with younger children, working with preschool children, and how effective TEAM is with all ages from preschool on up. I loved when we worked with Lee Flowers on the no practice. I thought that was really fun. And of course, everything that we've done on flirting and dating has been really fun.
Yeah. All those. You brought those to life in my head. I wouldn't have thought of a lot of those. But yes, I remember that Lee Flowers on no practice with patients and wanting to please everyone, and it's so interesting to me how in learning TEAM, it's not about book learning or even dancing lessons, because you have to understand things at a deeper level, and you have to change as a therapist in order to do it. You've got to do your own personal work and give up a lot of your natural inclinations. And end of statement.
People have said to me they like me on the podcast because I make mistakes constantly. So then when they make mistakes as a therapist, they think, oh, well, it's okay because Rhonda makes mistakes. So if she can make mistakes and I can make mistakes. So I've had a lot of exposure experience on the podcast, which has not always been easy, but has definitely been a great learning experience for me. And I have to attribute some of that to you, Matt, because when we do the Ask David episodes, you're always so right on top of the subject and the answers. And I've learned so much from you, and I know our listeners have too. What have you liked best about the podcasts?
Oh, I have to say it's always been the personal work. When someone's doing real live work, and like you have, Rhonda and Jill, and opening up, bearing their soul, and then going through the model and seeing people recover and have rapid shifts in their emotional state and go from depression to joy. I don't think that'll ever get tired. I'll never get tired of that. That's something it's like always a fresh and new miracle. And so I really appreciate you, Rhonda, for creating such a warm and safe place and, on this podcast, and for bringing your full heart and soul to this work. I'm going to miss you.
Yeah, I'm going to miss you too. I remember the podcast that we did with Danielle on her exposure to leeches, and we met in her office, and you actually brought a little glass jar of leeches, and we did the exposure intellectual work, and then you put the leeches on your hand because, as you know, we don't want to ask our clients to do something we don't do, so you did that. It was so totally gross. And then she put leeches on her arms,
right,
and that was super powerful.
Yeah, Danielle's a powerhouse. She's loves to travel around the world, but she likes to go to places where there are things like leeches, and she just had a terrible phobia. But yeah, that was a fun episode. I didn't know that you could buy leeches online. Just have it delivered to your doorstep. We had 2 batches. One arrived dead, and the other arrived, and they were quite active and hungry. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jill, I've learned so much from you about empathy and giving empathy and really connecting with people. And most of the personal work that we've posted on the podcast has been a recording of you and David. Some of it has been live, of course, but most of it, the majority has been you and David, a recording from an intensive or from the Tuesday group or another place. And I've always listened to them to prepare them to be edited and put on the podcast. And just like what Matt said, they never get old. Every personal work is like a diamond. I remember one time I was talking to you at some place and I said, empathy's been hard for me to learn because I grew up with such a critical father that the first thought in my head is kind of a criticism or a judgment, and how I've had to overcome that with the help of the 5 secrets. And you were just so supportive and talked to me about how you learned the 5 secrets and how you give empathy. I don't know if you remember that conversation because it was probably like 10 years ago, but I fall back to that pretty often.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that specific conversation. I mean, I definitely remember you sharing with me how empathy has been hard because of having critical parents. And I also do feel lucky that I, quite honestly, was raised by 2 very empathic parents. Even so, I just absolutely remember, I've always shared this with David, that for me, the 5 secrets have been so, like wondrous to behold kind of feeling. And it's one thing to feel empathic toward others, but it's another thing to be able to communicate that level of empathy and to realize that you need to, right? And I told David this, maybe you guys have heard this before too, but when I first started learning the 5 secrets of effective communication from David, and I learned that he had this book that he had written that's called Feeling Good Together, that really outlines the 5 secrets. And the first half of it kind of teaches you the 5 secrets, and the second half kind of has chapter by chapter descriptions of how to respond to a narcissist, how to respond to someone who's competitive, how to respond to someone who's critical, how to respond to a complainer, like really amazing case studies. Well, I absolutely kept it by my bedside, and I would, I read it cover to cover, but then whenever something would come up during my day that I found someone difficult, I would, turn to the chapter to reread that section. And I also shared this with David too, that in the beginning when I was doing this training, I would be driving around in my car and I would just out loud be practicing, imagine someone cut me off right now, how I'd say, I'm guessing that, you were in a rush. I mean, that was kind of scary for me, but, it's like, imagine empathizing with the driver of the car who had just cut me off instead of engaging in what everybody else does, which is finger in the air and road rage. I was trying to think, how would I respond even in that moment in time? So, I think the thing we all agree with is that the TEAM CBT model and David's teachings are, worth so much, and they take a lot of time to learn and energy and motivation. And I think the 3 of us, among many, many other people, have always been kind of all in on it, right? Like we read it, we live it, right? And then we do it with our patients and our loved ones. What, David?
We live it to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
And to the best of our nature.
For sure.
Sometimes you just want to be pissed off and tell somebody off, and you don't want to have a loving relationship with them. And then later on, you kind of start singing a different tune, listening to their point of view, and then the whole universe kind of opens up. But I have a question for you, Jill, or maybe for Rhonda and Matt also, that there is a kind of a nasty side of human nature that I believe is inherent in human nature. This is where I kind of go along with Freud, that humans aren't basically good. We have a deep drive toward love and joy and peace, but also toward hostility. So before you can use the 5 secrets, a decision has to be made. And I was faced with it just today. We had a hiker on a Sunday hike, which we do for like about an hour and a half or 2 hours every Sunday morning, and he got into an argument with one of the hikers, and they just started arguing, and as soon as we got home, he just bolted out of the car angrily and rejected all of us. And I hadn't heard from him for a good 6 months, and thought I would never hear from him again. But then I got an email today from him, attempting to be conciliatory, but it was all self-defense and blame and accusation type of thing. But it was something, like he was saying, I'm still here, I'm still alive, and so I'm going to pursue that relationship. But I can feel within myself the side that wants to reject him and feel morally superior and to kind of put him down and point out all of his flaws. And then another side, a side that really doesn't trust him. Mm-hmm. And then another side that would love to open up and have that warm connection. But I experience that sometimes as a real battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil. That battle has to be decided, and then is the hard work of using the 5 secrets. I mean, I learned it from Sterling Morey. I think that was a kind of a friendly plagiarism, my five secrets, because I was just writing down what he was doing naturally, and he was just an insecure medical student from London who was sitting in with me for a month on patients. And he didn't know any cognitive therapy, but he had such a delicate way, much like the 3 of you, of interacting with patients who were upset. And I was just telling myself, boy, if I could learn some of that would really be the missing dimension in my life, in my clinical work. But it's not that easy as learning the 5 secrets, because you have to make a decision. Or maybe it's automatic to the 3 of you all the time. I would think, Rhonda, with you, it's the least automatic.
Correct.
Jill and Matt is probably the most automatic. But I think that's not a minor dimension. But nobody's commented.
Is it automatic for you, Matt? Does it come naturally to you?
You mean all the time or some of the time?
Most of the time.
Yeah, okay.
It depends. I would say most of the time my values are connection and warmth and accepting others where they are, forgiving others, trying to step off of any pedestal I might want to put myself up onto, and because I love that feeling of connection with other people. But yeah, David, you're right. I think within each of us, there's an angel and a devil, and they're kind of duking it out. And my inner devil sometimes wins, and then usually it's with a lot of regret that I reflect back on things that I've said when I've kind of given into that. But I always try to make a point of coming back to people and apologizing if I can when I make those false moves. David, the book that was mentioned and that you wrote for couples, Feeling Good Together,
It's not for couples, by the way. It's not. That's the one thing I put in the introduction. This is never for couples. This is only for individuals.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You use it for couples. It's like it's subtly saying you've got to do your part.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a completely new model, and the responses in that book are so beautiful. They're like poetry, and just really inspiring when it comes to human relationships. And we've got so many problems in the world caused by our anger and our blame. And so it's refreshing to have your words on paper to refer back to when we get lost and confused.
Do you remember the chapter you helped me with in the Tools Not Schools of Therapy? The empathy chapter?
The empathy chapter, yeah.
Which one was it?
Was it one like changing the focus or?
No.
No, all right, you'll have to remind me.
I have no idea.
Okay.
No, it was the one on sexual stuff with patients.
Oh, like the promiscuous patient, the 5 secrets with a promiscuous patient.
With you, or they're accusing you of staring at their private parts or whatever. And I can remember, the very dialogues we had when we were practicing. How would we respond to this one? And how would we? I don't know if you remember that, but it was so helpful.
Yeah, thank you, David, for reminding me of that. I'm actually teaching that in a group of therapists these days, and I still find it to be the most challenging application of the 5 secrets. Far more difficult than talking to someone who's angry with us.
Yeah, right.
It's talking to someone where there's some type of flirtation or inappropriate remark or attraction going on. So, yeah, I do recall that. Thank you.
I think we should all shut up and let Jill talk.
Okay. I think that's a good idea.
That's unnecessary.
Jill, do you remember the podcast you did on when helping doesn't help?
Will you remind me a little more?
Yes, thinking about your relationship with your son. Mm-hmm. And as a parent, we're always giving our kids advice. And you had one like light bulb went off moment where you realized telling him what to do wasn't really helping him.
Yeah. But I mean, what I can say in general is that something that's been so near and dear to my heart is figuring out how to use TEAM CBT in my relation, as it is for all of us in my relationships with people, not just patients, and in particular, how to apply it to parenting. And so I think of it very much as like, for me, the thing I still struggle with because I tend to be a warm but controlling person. I like things to be the way I like them, and that includes my kids. And I tend to think that I know more than they do or know what's best for them, as so many parents do. But for me, like an example of that, of course, the 5 secrets, right? All the time using the 5 secrets in trying, as David points out, trying and failing and then trying again to use the 5 secrets. But David, the TEAM CBT method of the invitation is something that I think I have to use, or I have tried to use with my kids all the time, which is that, your kids will come home from school and they'll tell you about something that happened. If you're lucky, by the way, they'll tell you about something that happened. If you're not, they'll go in their room and shut the door. But my kids happen to be very communicative and chatty and open. And so one of them would come home and tell me about something that happened at school, and they probably weren't asking for my advice. But of course, I started to offer it to them like any, parent does. And well, maybe you should say this. And why didn't you? Maybe you should do this. And I have a great idea for you. How about this and this? And then they would immediately shut down or roll their eyes or say that wouldn't work, or that's a stupid idea, or, And so learning to literally just listen and offer empathy and say, what do you think? And then eventually, if I thought I had a really good idea, saying, I have some thoughts about like how you might handle that. I was curious, did you want me to share them with you, or did you just kind of want me to listen? Which is such a classic invitation step that we've learned in TEAM CBT. And when I remember to do that and shut my big mouth, it's always really helpful because they either say, nah, I just wanted you to listen. And then I feel pretty able to listen because that was the request. Or they say, oh yeah, what were you thinking? And then it's kind of like permission to proceed. And so, yeah, I feel like I definitely feel like parenting is the huge number one project in my mind all the time. And it requires a lot of work and a lot of thought. And I just feel so grateful that everything I've learned from David and the whole community is applicable, honestly, to not just what we get paid for, but what we get to do at home all the time. And I make mistakes all the time, Rhonda. And so, yes, my examples always involve going back to my kids and going, hey, I'm sorry. Like even my son last night was bothered about something that he wasn't talking to me about. And I said something like, oh, you don't have to tell me. And like, I said the right thing. And then I started asking like, well, is it social or is it academic? I at the same time said, don't worry, you don't have to tell me. I'm here for you either way. And then like 5 seconds later started berating him with questions. So, I break every rule just like everybody else.
Yeah, that's so hard. That was so beautifully stated, Jill. I love the way you expressed that. I hope all of our listeners heard it and understood it.
Yeah, I feel a lot of kinship with you, Jill. That's one area where I often will go astray in my use of 5 secrets is with my kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we care so much about someone and we really want the best for them, it's hard not to be giving advice and telling them what to do. Yeah.
And it happened. I mean, David talks about this all the time. It happens all the time for us as therapists too, right? Because we care deeply about our patients and want better for them and want them to change in ways that we think they should change. And I feel like that's one of the main, directional changes that I've made as a therapist since meeting David and learning this model, right? Is to sort of offer what it is we have to offer, but also really sit with open hands and let our patients be in the driver's seat for how they want their lives to look, what kind of help they're actually looking for and what they're willing to bring to the table.
I have a kind of dopey question for the 3 of you, and I think I know the answer, so it's probably a waste of time asking the question. But I've often been very convinced by the statement that enlightenment is a lonely road, and what I'm referring to there is let's take this dear colleague who had an argument with someone on a hike. I wasn't actually involved in the argument, but he got angry with everyone, and so the solution would be to really get into the listening role and see the world through his eyes, and that would lead to a certain warmth and connection that could be a really great thing. But sometimes the idea that the other person is going to listen to what you have to say is you sometimes have to kind of give that up. Is what I'm referring to, and you may not have ever experienced that. But I was just curious because I know, Jill, you'd be coming on with artful, beautiful, I feel statements that would, kind of allow you to express your point of view in a non-adversarial way. And Matt and Rhonda may have ideas about it, or what I'm saying may just seem like a lot of nonsense.
No, you're saying, David, let me just ask you if I'm getting you right. You're saying, for example, with this situation with someone who's been kind of adversarial and then kind of angry and maybe iced you out for a bit, who's coming back and wanting to talk to you, you're saying, the best way to start would be to listen, right? To try to understand what the other person's saying what their perspective is, and to really and truly listen, not superficially listen, but actually get it and see the world through their eyes. And that, I think, is the key part. It's not saying the words that make them think you're listening, but it's like actually melting, right? Actually going, oh, I could totally get that if this person was feeling this way and thinking this, like, yeah, I would feel that way too. Like there's so much truth to what this person is saying. But then I, for one, can say I totally believe that it's to have an authentic relationship with someone, which is pretty much all I'm interested in, means to share my feelings as well. And so, I mean, I think my goal is always to think of it as almost like step one and step two. Like for someone to be able to listen to me, they need to feel really listened to. So I think it's like authentically agreeing, seeing the world and not just platitudes, and then saying, you know, all the empathy that you need. And then I wondered if I could share with you how I've been feeling, you know, and then to kind of tell your story and what's been coming up for you. And then I would say, look, if you end up with someone who can't hear your side of the story, who isn't interested in listening to you once they've been listened to, that may not be someone that you'd want to have a relationship with. It wouldn't for me, right? If I felt that if I shared my feelings after doing an amazing job of empathizing and someone shut me down or was still super critical, I might think twice about whether that was someone that I wanted to be close to or felt that I could be close to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's kind of the last word on that topic, and really beautifully expressed too, Jill.
Thanks. I'm happy to hear what you have to say, Matt and Rhonda as well.
I can relate to that, David. I found it to be a humbling experience every time I've done relationship work, and especially using the relationship journal.
Oh yeah.
And it gets to that part of, okay, now let me grade my response, what I said, and instantly I can see it was an F minus, and also that it's causing the person to treat me the way that I am upset about. Yeah,
right.
And I think you've called that the death of the blaming self, is when we realize, oh, I'm the problem. Now I figured it out. I'm causing this dynamic that I'm really upset and angry about. And so that's, I guess, one part of what you're saying, maybe.
And it's so hard to see that, right?
What's that?
Oh, I said, and it's so hard to see that sometimes, right? Like what you're talking about, that interpersonal enlightenment or whatever it is, like just realizing that it's you that's to blame.
Right. It's a little cringy. Oh no.
Yeah.
But then it's a huge relief and a rebirth right afterwards.
Totally.
One thing that and we'll get to you on this point, Rhonda, but one thing, Jill, that you've mentioned often, and I'll quote you, and then I'll find out if I'm quoting you correctly or incorrectly. But that, using the relationship journal, in case there's listeners who don't understand, that's a way that you can get to enlightenment, anybody, in 15 minutes. Guaranteed interpersonal enlightenment. And interpersonal enlightenment is seeing your own role in a problem, how you're creating your own interpersonal reality. And it's done pragmatically by, what did the other person say to you? You write that down. What exactly did you say next? And then you take a look at your response and analyze it with the three very simple questions. Did you share your feelings? Did you empathize with the other person? Did you treat the other person with respect? And it'll always be no, no, no. And then you can see, and how will that impact the other person? You can see that you're really creating that problem. And that's what I call one of the four great deaths of the self, the angry, blaming self. But it's been a relief to my ears, Jill, when you've said that. I think someone asked you just within the past week or so, what percentage of the time are people willing to look at their own role and experience that great death, that the pain of seeing how we're creating our own negative reality? And I think you've said the majority of people, or something in that range, really aren't willing to do that. And I just find that so important and illuminating.
Yeah, I mean, even what I would say is it seems that a lot of patients who bring up a problem or a conflict with another person in therapy, that most of the time they're not actually looking for help in making that relationship better. So I don't even get to the relationship journal with them.
Yeah, right.
I feel like people who end up wanting to do that work, where we've already crossed the road of saying that would mean you'd have to look at your role. And are you interested in looking at your role? You'd have to give up blaming the other person for the problems in your relationship and get curious about what you might be doing that's kind of pushing them away or even causing them to treat you in that way. That most people are, when you make that process transparent, are like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Why would I have to change? They're the problem. And that's my experience, that so many people will, complain about someone else in their life, criticize, feel angry. And, the answer to the question of like, did you want to look at your role? Do you want to be the one to have to do the changing? Is, I don't know. So many people say no, thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just that's just music to my ears every time you say it. My own experience and perceptions. But let's hear from Matt.
What do you guys think about that?
When you say the road to enlightenment is lonely, what I think about is the lack of connection that people have as they're living their life. And it's kind of piggybacking when people want to blame and don't want to look at their contribution. I imagine that they're having a lonelier existence than people who are doing what you did, Matt, where you pull out a relationship journal and you see what did you do and what can you do to repair based on the work that you did. Which reminds me too of something that I think all of us do, is that the tools that we teach our clients, like the daily mood log and the relationship journal, when we have struggles in our lives, I know I pull out those tools and use them myself, which I think is a way that TEAM continues to live in my life and helps me facilitate change with my clients, because I know what it's like to fill out the relationship journal or to fill out a daily mood log or to do a cost benefit analysis.
Well, the daily mood log is a lot less painful because when you do it, you find out you're way better than what you thought you were.
Yeah. Exactly. It's different than a relationship journal. Yeah. But I just mean that we all use the tools that we teach our clients in our own personal lives.
Right.
Totally.
But when you lose the relationship journal, that's a hard sell, as Jill pointed out, because you find out you're far more sucky than you thought you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that takes courage.
Yeah. Yep.
Matt, you're looking off like you have something to add.
Well, I was going to... I'm wondering if part of what, David, you're describing as loneliness is something that I felt sometimes when I'm, including when we're doing our Ask David podcast, and someone will ask a question that we can't answer. And it's not because we don't know stuff. It's because the question isn't specific enough to be answered.
Right. These vague, can you help me, doctor?
Yeah, and I notice that sometimes makes me feel quite lonely, like I'm living in a different universe or something.
Yeah.
Or the universe that I like to live in, David, you introduced me to, which is a universe where our experiences and feelings are generated by our thoughts. And we have to know what specific thought we're having that's causing whatever feeling is occurring for us in order to address it. And I feel like that point just gets lost over and over again. And people start looking to try to find kind of general answers to general problems.
Yeah.
Rather than getting into one specific thought that we can address?
I have a list that I'll probably never dare talk about on a podcast, but it's the 35 things I hate about our profession. And each of them is a deep hatred. And that's one of them that very few people ask. People are upset. What are you thinking? It's like we're supposed to attach a diagnosis. Oh, you have social anxiety disorder, and then throw techniques at that person. And it's right there in the head. You just people have ears. That's for the words. That's where the words go in. You could say to a person like, "What are you telling yourself right now? What are your thoughts?" And then you'll find out exactly why that person is upset. And everyone, it's unique and individual. And when you focus the treatment on that, you're creating a robust, powerful treatment, assuming you're a decent therapist, which may be a bridge too far for most therapists. But if you have techniques to help to individualize the treatment, then you're helping people in an individual way. And why? People say, "Oh, you need somatic therapy. I'm going to tap on your left eyebrow to help you with this," or some. I'll put it politely, garbage like that. And that our profession is filled with garbage. End of David's nasty statement.
Well, David, I think we should do a rated R podcast where you get to vent all those frustrations at some point, and people can opt in or opt out.
Yeah, I was thinking I could do it on a day other than Monday, publish it, midweek with a disclaimer at the start. You probably don't want to listen to this because you'll hate David forever, and whatever credibility he once had will suddenly vanish.
We're almost at the end of today's podcast. Let's end on a positive note. Like I said, the podcast that I remember so fondly, and there's a lot more. Like I loved when Lorraine Wong brought her client onto I don't know if you remember that, David. It's the only time we've ever had a client on the podcast. And that was in the very beginning. That was in August of 2019. And they were talking about emotional eating, and her client admired you so much that we invited her to the podcast with Lorraine. And that was pretty powerful. Do you have any podcasts in the past 6 years that stand out in your mind?
Do I?
You, David.
I don't have memory for podcasts per se, but what has stood out in my mind always is when the magic is flowing. So, for example, we might be doing an Ask David episode and then get to giggling and really understanding something together, or feeling sadness or powerful emotion. But that's, at the end, we know we had energy in the podcast today. And I think that is what has stood out in my mind as the most powerful aspect of any of our podcasts. And of course, that's also why the personal work is so often powerful, because there's tears, there's laughter, there's joy, and it's kind of getting into that experience of enlightenment versus talk. And I think, Jill, we recently had a beautiful session with a young woman from India.
Yeah, hurrah!
That's the podcast that are just preceding this one.
Oh, yeah, it just happened. They've just heard it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was. I was fearful before the podcast because I felt there was a wall in terms of connecting emotionally. and I'm maybe not the best at that anyway. But at a certain point, I thought she was getting kind of a little choked up, and I said, "Are you feeling tearful right now?" And then she said she was, and she trusted, and she opened up, and the tears came, and that, to my way of thinking, just transformed that what was already a great session into a phenomenal experience for her and for all the listeners when the magic happens. And I think for me, I think maybe Jill, you've sometimes criticized me rightly for this, for being, focused on making magic happen as opposed to teaching techniques. But I think we both think that they're both important. But I think my goal, whatever, for better or for worse, is to bring magic into the world. I don't mean that like Santa Cruz crystals, although we do have some magic drops you can purchase for $25. Yeah, I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? When magic happens, you understand that, I'm sure, Matt.
Oops, I think you're muted, Matt.
You're mad.
Matt, you're muted.
He's working on unmuting himself.
But anyway, maybe you could comment on it, and Jill, on the concept of magic, or do you feel that's just kind of a junk idea, which it probably is?
Not at all. I mean, I hope I would never be quoted as saying that I don't think that's important. I think it's super important, and it is, of course. I mean, all of us love doing personal work, love being a part of personal work. Think that anytime we can bring personal work into our teaching and training and interactions, that it's worth so much. So, I would never say it should be either or. I think what David's referring to is just that so many therapists can get excited by and motivated by seeing personal work being done, but it's so complicated. So I always have the desire to break it down for therapists and sort of tell them about what they saw and teach it to them in a way where they might be able to replicate it. But in and of itself, it's so important. And I was going to say too, I think the personal work sessions are definitely the blow away sessions. And I think you and Matt also have several podcasts. That's the personal work that you did with Marilyn. And I have to imagine those are some of the most beautiful and heartwarming, podcasts for many people.
Yeah.
And what my first intensive where I was introduced to TEAM CBT and you, David, I was lucky enough to be at the intensive where you did personal work with Karen on her daughter getting shot with the BB gun by neighborhood boys. And
Karen Rodella.
What?
Was that your first intensive?
That was my first intensive. That was in 2013. And I saw the two of you working with her, and you weren't breaking it down like, oh, I'm giving empathy. You just did the work. And I saw the tears and the connection and the laughter and the relief and the enlightenment and the connection. And that's when I thought, I want to learn how to do that.
I see. Yes, that makes sense, Rhonda. And you remember what she said at the end? We were getting her feedback scores, and she's the only person who's scored lower than 0 on anything. And she had minus 1,000 on guilt and minus 1,000,000 on frustration. And then she said, I don't know what the hell just happened. But
that's right.
Yeah.
But it was magic.
That was magic.
And that's what people are looking for. And all of us in our lives, some magic. And so that's always been my goal is how do we how do we get to magic? So I can remember working at the VA with all the veterans, and we'd see them for months on end and give them all of these new antidepressants, and none of them ever worked that I can remember. And they were just, moping along day after day. And they weren't even getting less depressed as I can remember. And it was just terrible that this was our depression research unit at the Philadelphia VA hospital. It's associated with the Penn Medical School. And, people don't want to just take pills and be, mildly to moderately to severely depressed. I mean, the purpose of life is to experience some joy, to get to hang out with a Rhonda, to get to hang out with a Jill, not so much a Matt, but and to laugh and to have people who like you for your just average shitty self. Because we all kind of screw up, I think, and everyone's got something that they're ashamed of. One of my most memorable things from Sunday, Amir, Rhonda?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he reminded me of something I have forgotten, that he was a shepherd in Iran. This practically brings tears to my eyes to say it. And but in Iran, a shepherd is a kind of a shameful thing. It's because you're so low in status. And now he's one of the world's top molecular neurologists. He's a physician, and he's one of these MD, PhD guys. He's just stunningly brilliant. But he'd been, I'd forgotten about this. He would come on his hikes, and he told me he was, so ashamed of the fact that he'd been a shepherd. And I couldn't believe it, because I can't imagine anything more fantastic than being a shepherd. But it was just a simple thing. I just told him to tell, 20 strangers that he was a shepherd when he was growing up, and he feels ashamed of it, and what do they think? And he said it was just the most life-transforming experience that he's ever had. And now he's working in the Kaiser health system, and he's writing on the human side of medicine, because he treats Amir Saburi, I think is his last name, and he treats these people with these horrible, untreatable, like these genetic, horrible, untreatable, terminal illnesses, and has found a tremendous role for the 5 secrets in a medical setting. But the joy that he felt even on Sunday, and just in recounting how, getting over his own feelings of shame and how liberating it's been. I'm just babbling. I'm not sure.
And that's exactly what he talked about when he came on the podcast, is the human side of medicine.
Oh, he talked about that on which podcast was that?
Well, I would have to look that up.
She's not that much of a genius. I
don't have them all memorized.
Don't you know all 500 podcasts, Rhonda? What's up with you?
I know how to find them.
Right.
Matt, do you want to say something while I look for this?
Is my mic on? I'm worried it's not working.
Yeah.
Now it's working.
It is. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I think it dropped out a second ago when David introduced the topic of magic, and that's his goal, is to bring that into the world for all of us to enjoy, and to I think we'll probably fail at that mission to bring joy to everyone in the world, but it's such a worthwhile thing to do. I think I'm going to enjoy failing at that with you, David. And thank you for getting me on the right track there.
Well, Rhonda, as this comes to a close, how did we do in today's podcast?
Well, I think we did really, really great. I think that we created magic between the four of us. We laughed, you cried, I cried. And I just want to say that Amir's podcast is 173. And it's actually a really beautiful podcast on the human side of
He's such
the medical profession. Yeah.
Human being, and that's the part of the joy of the profession. We've to share, to people share their inner selves and show you who they really are, and it's such a privilege.
There have been a lot of podcasts. I spent a couple hours indexing them and rethinking about them, and I think we missed the mark sometimes, but I also think most of the time we created a lot of magic, David, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to including me in your world and on this podcast, because like I said before, nothing has been more of a joy in my professional career than working with you.
Thank you. I feel the same way, Rhonda. I feel the same.
We love you, Rhonda.
I love you guys too.
Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've given so much of yourself to this podcast and the whole TEAM CBT community, and then, the world. Really
it won't
beautiful.
be the same without you, Rhonda.
Well, we're passing the baton to Kevin Cornelius, and I think that he will bring his own kind of magic to the podcast.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank you all so much. And
thank you.
Thanks to our listeners for tuning in.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Barovsky, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.